everyone, it's Natalie here. Welcome to my channel. I wanted to just do a video to talk about what my intentions are for the new year and what I'm going to be doing with all of the decks that I have acquired in the last year. Oh my gosh. Okay, so yeah. So let's start. There's a good place to start. So I've taken a good hard look at what the decks are that I'm really interested in learning more about and or working with, and thought, as carefully as I can about how that should look, and what that should do. And yeah, it's been an interesting process. It doesn't mean that I won't get new decks. It doesn't mean that I won't work with new decks and try them out and so on. Lord knows I have plenty of decks that I can work with, but both the good news and the bad news is that the decks I have are the decks that I want. So it's a matter of finding a way to balance that and give myself the opportunity to play with them, and to grow and to challenge myself, but without becoming too overwhelmed, which may be easier said than done. Who knows? We'll find out. And there's no better way to foil a plan than to actually voice it, right? As soon as you say, okay, I'm going to do the following things, like they have a way of just completely being thrown off track. And that's okay too. I feel like in order for the plans to be thrown off track and for you to be given a new path, sometimes you have to have something in place to begin with, right? So yeah. That's how it is. So that said, I have 3 decks that I want to work with and study this year because I know that they're going to bring me deeper into some fundamental territory with Thoth, and that includes the Thoth deck. So yes, I have a copy of the Thoth deck that I got last year, and right at the beginning of the year, about a year ago, because I could, because suddenly I thought, why is it that I never got that deck? And I just remember a lot of it was because I got told, oh, it's evil or it's bad or whatever. But I have never read the Book of Thoth, and I've never really spent time studying the Thoth deck. I did, well, not in depth. I spent some time last year studying it, but it was not in depth. I like depth. And for the moment, what I've got is I've got the Thoth Tarot by Lon Milo Duquette, and it is really good. I wish I had put all my little bookmarks and things in here for it and given myself permission to write it up, because I learned a lot of really valuable stuff in here last year, and I never marked up the book, which is odd, and I don't remember what my thinking behind that was. But it's an excellent book if you're looking for a book on the Thoth. But it's not the Book of Thoth. And I got intimidated out of the Book of Thoth because I heard people say repeatedly, oh, it's so hard to read, rah, rah, rah. I got a sample of it online and was like, this is not a hard to read book. Why, what is it? I don't know. I'm not sure why people feel that it's hard to read. But I thought, well, I studied Shakespeare, for crying out loud. I should be able to figure out how to read the Book of Thoth. Crowley should be accessible, right? And I think actually Crowley is a lot more accessible than people give it credit for, right? I'm not really sure what that's about, but yeah, you got me, folks. I don't know, but so I'm gonna pull this book certainly back out, but I'm really very curious about the Book of Thoth, and that's really where I'd like to spend the bulk of my time, with regards to this deck. I got it all trimmed up, albeit this was my first ever deck mod. You can really tell. And I really love it for that. I really do. It's just, I love this deck. It's beautiful. And there's so much depth to it, and I'm fascinated. I also think that Crowley was just a human being. So from that perspective, it's much easier, to balance what it is that I think about him or about the deck or whatever. But along those same lines, I will also be participating, and I have not started it yet, but it is about to start, even though she's already started it. I'll just go back to what I was talking about. I'm going to be working with the Tarot of the Spirit. The lovely Jules over at Cosmic Spirit and Books finally decided, bless her, We'd all pressured her so much, like, please do a series on the Tarot of the Spirit. And so she decided to go ahead and do it. And she's now structured this incredible course, the beginnings of which you can find now on her channel, which I will link below for you. She has a remarkable depth working with this deck and with many others, and including the Thoth. Actually, I'm going to be going back to her Thoth series as well. But yeah, it's just incredible. And Pamela Eakins also has her own channel and has done a lot of... Similarly, I started this one last year and I didn't mark it either. Maybe I did. No, I used pencil in here, but I didn't actually mark the pages. Anyway, the book is incredible, and it's, again, very accessible, really beautiful, and reveals tremendous depth. So these are two that I'd really like to get more deeply into. I'm very curious about Pamela Eakins' work and about her perspective on tarot. You know, this is a Thoth based or Thoth inspired deck, which of course means it's golden. Like most decks that are esoteric are all Golden Dawn anyway. So yeah, I want to dive into this deck more deeply. And last year I became so infatuated with the Rachelle so quickly that I really did not get the foundation in Thoth or in Tarot of the Spirit that I'd really intended. So that's on the cards for this year. Get it? You like that? You see what I did there? Yeah, it's good. There'll be more. There'll be more. Just you wait. So the next one is the Spirit Keeper's Tarot. And the reason I'm curious, I'm very curious. I know that Benebell is a creator and writer and so on that people have very mixed feelings about. Personally speaking, I'm completely admire her. Deeply admire her. Gosh, this one smells good. Oh, I love that smell. Because I'm amazed. I don't know how anyone is that prolifically creative, and capable of it, but she also does the hard work. And there's a lot to be said for hard work. So whatever else people may think, you got to admit she's done the work, and her work is solid. It's good. It's affordable. It's attainable. And I think she's a remarkable individual. I really do. This deck is both, it's her, but it's also clearly, and at certain points very obviously, influenced both by RWS and by Thoth. And so she's got a very deep background of both. And because of that, and I am curious about the ways in which she sees them overlapping. So I'm actually very excited to work with it. I'm really excited to work with it. I've got the books all ready to go. I won't even try to troll those out because they are... they're big and there's several. So, but I have got them and I'm ready to go, ready to study. I feel like I may end up reading with this deck. I'm sure I will. I'm sure I'll end up reading with Thoth and with Tarot of the Spirit and with SKT, because when you work that deeply studying a deck, it tends to be that you will end up reading with it. That's just how it goes. Whether I end up reading for them, with them for others or just for myself, I don't know. I just don't know. But, yeah, I think any study that we do that deepens our understanding of the tarot fundamentals, whether they're the esoteric or historical or structural, whatever it may be, I think that ultimately improves with everything else that we read. It will improve every connection we have with every other deck, because they're all coming back into the same system, right? So it's exciting. I'm excited. So those are my big study decks. I also have two groupings, I guess. They're not, I don't want to separate them as groupings, but they're kind of separate as groupings. I don't know. We'll see how this comes together. So the Rachelle, I'm always working with, because this is a deck that continues to unfold for me and to offer new wisdom. And yeah, there's a lot in here. So I will be working with my first edition that I've trimmed and which is just for Nat, and we'll be, I'll be working deeply with that to do Tetragrammaton and um, the Merkaba spread and so forth throughout the year, right? Because I intend for that to be an ongoing practice. At least weekly, if not, I may find that it becomes daily or every couple of days, twice. I don't know. We're just going to find out and experiment and see how that goes. But this is it's got a big role for me this year. Now, alongside it, I have chosen to work with the Oracle of Initiation by Mellissae Lucia. So the Oracle of Initiation has become one of those mystery decks where it's got the depth, it's got the insight that I'm looking for, and I need to work with it deeply, which means that it will become part of that process and part of that situation. I feel too, along with it, and I don't know whether this will be exactly with the Merkaba spread, or I'm just going to call this a grouping, right? This is a grouping that feels like they go together and that I will work with them together either all at once or interchangeably or whatever. So we've got Marielle, we've got Oracle of Initiation. Okay, Santos and Signs is another one in this grouping. And I don't really know what to call this grouping, but it's, it is, suffice it to say, an important group. So we know with the Santos and Signs, we've done so many videos like this lately, but we got the small cards that have the words, and then we have the Santos cards, and we have the Signs cards, right? And they're absolutely exquisite. So they will be working together with Marielle and Oracle of Initiation. I don't have it yet, but I did just encounter, and I guess I've been under a rock. I don't know. I don't feel like I'm under a rock, but I could be mistaken about that. But I just came across the Sovereign Oracle, and I went ahead and ordered it because when I saw Nina from Shuffle Tarot reading with it with Santos and Signs, it just was like a light bulb went off, and I thought, oh my gosh, that's right. That's exactly that's the level of depth that needs to come with this deck. Not just the single words, but that Oracle card deck. So I have ordered it. It's on its way, but I don't have it at present. So that will also be part of this process because I feel like it's a very important part of that process, frankly. And it's part of that grouping, as is the Funky Fortunes. But I feel like Funky Fortunes is going to be part of everything because I just love that practice. So, and I don't have them over here. And we've seen this, right? We know this deck. There's loads. We've done them. I put them out there. Anyway, so that'll be part of it, and part of that grouping. And then, of course, another part of that grouping becomes the Pholarchos, because the Pholarchos it's absolutely in that territory for me. And it's right where I left off at the last... from the last video. So yeah, we know the Pholarchos. It's gaining a lot of popularity, which I'm really happy about because it's certainly worthy of that. So this will be part of that grouping. And I feel too that... Oh, I don't need to take this out. We know this one, right? The Kim Krantz's archetype deck. I'll take it out. Why not? We're playing cards here, right? I've not done much work with this one yet, but I'm really intrigued and fascinated. I feel like this is a deck that I'm going to use a lot this year for daily draws and various other types of readings, and so forth. It's got an interesting smell. Not quite like any of my others. Anyway, I'm fascinated by this one. I got it right at the end of last year. And truthfully, I really expected it to be much bigger than it is. But again, this is how big my paws are, guys. They're just that big. So I was expecting to need various different ways to shuffle it and so forth, but I'm okay. I'm okay. It is a big deck. It is bigger than any of my other circle decks, and I feel like most of my circle decks are already pretty chunky. I don't understand why we need to make decks that are quite this large. Not that I don't appreciate seeing the artwork, but when I hear, I forget. if you have large hands and your hands are very dexterous, right, which was part of my work for years when I taught, physical theater, mime, etc., you learn to work with props and it's not a big deal. But if it's not the way that you're built and it's not your structure, why would you do that? I don't get it. So I don't know. As I engage with my own creativity this year, hearing various people that I love and adore within the community talk about how they have difficulty handling really beautiful decks that should be accessible or more accessible, it does shift and change the way that I think about creating decks for myself when I'm thinking, because I'm presently, looking at that. So I won't be doing anything that's quite this unwieldy. Yeah, it's a shame. It's really a shame. But I'm also very grateful because I can pick it up and work with it without great difficulty. So anyhow, it is a magnificent deck. It is clearly the result of very, very deep work on the part of Kim Krantz. It's stunning. It's really stunning. So this one gets added to this collective pile that includes Santos and Saints, and Oracle of Initiation, and Marielle, and Pholarchos, and eventually Sovereign Oracle. Who knows? Maybe I'll do a great big giant spread with all of them at once. I don't know, but they're kind of grouped together for me as ones that I'm using for a particular purpose, and it's all personal. These are all just my personal practice decks as well, by the way. None of these are ones that I'm going to be working specifically with clients, using, save for one, maybe one or two. I'll get to that at the end. I think that's everything in that grouping. The next grouping is very simple and very small, not a big deal. And it is not going to be a surprise either, but I'm working more deeply with the Tarot of the She. Okay, so working more deeply with Tarot of the She, and also with Moon Oracle of the She, because I have not done as much work with them as I would like. And they do call to me over there on the shelf pretty frequently and regularly. I now have a great buildup of hagstones and stones that feel to me like they are related to the She. And they're asking for recognition, and they're asking for me to work with them. So I'm realizing I'm having that same problem that Nina did the other day with her camera, where it was recording and not being very nice. Anyway, and glitching out. So we'll see how this works, if it's going to work and be okay. So that's that grouping. The next grouping, I don't have all of the cards for yet either, but it will include the Story Medicine Tarot. And I will say simply, I have a lot of shit to heal with my mom and around my own personal story. And I feel that this deck is really integral for me in terms of reclaiming a lot of stuff that I've lost. I will be doing a kind of in-depth walkthrough of this deck at some point because it's incredible. And it scared the crap out of me the first time I opened it and actually looked at it. I'd seen the images, of course, in walkthroughs and so forth, but the impact of having them right there along with the guidebook was not something I had anticipated. And I think I burst into tears and ended up texting Nina right away and was like, oh my God, what did I just do? What is this? What is this deck? What is it going to do to me? And she was, of course, very supportive and reassuring. Thank heavens for Instagram, because you can just message people that live on the other side of the world and talk to them. So yeah, thankfully she was there and able to respond. And I don't know, it was just a very scary moment. And I knew that she had worked deeply with the deck, so I just reached out because, oh my gosh, sometimes they have that impact, right? They have that impact. I know that for a lot of people, the Marielle has had that impact, even though that it had a very different one on me. So, yeah. At any rate, I needed that reassuring voice at that moment. Thankfully, it was there. Okay, it does not want to go back in the box. That's okay. You can sit here. Along with that, I will be using the Red Seeds Oracles 1 and 2, because these two feel like they are very, very much, you know, of the same ilk and feel as the story medicine. Similarly, I also feel that the Red Seeds is going to work with me very tightly and closely with the Motherpeace, because I want deeply to go into the Motherpeace and study it, learn it, work with it. Again, though, where I could have qualified this as a study deck easily, but I am going to refrain from saying that specifically, because I'm also going to work with this one with the intent of healing. You know, I got into this deck last year, worked with it quite a bit, actually, for a couple of months, and really just immediately was like, I love this one. I love this one. Maybe it's a soul deck. And then before I could get too much further into it, you see where this is going, right? Overconsumption. Before I could get fully into it, I already then had the New Earth, and so on. And the New Earth became such an important deck. So, yeah. So I'm coming back to Motherpeace this year with that intention, and with the intention of working with Red Seeds Oracles 1 and 2 with this one as well. But I also realized that the Crystal Medicine Oracle is actually wanting to work with the Motherpeace and not with the New Earth, which is what I really expected. So where, you know, this has such a beautiful divine feminine feel, I don't know. I just expected that this one was going to go with a different deck, and it's actually going to go with the Motherpeace. And it asks to be used with the Motherpeace. So I'm going to honor that and work with them together. I love the way that, actually, when I look at the two backs together, we've got this kind of blue and kind of gold, night and day, yin yang kind of dichotomy there, which is really rather beautiful. I'm also hoping, like in this sort of vein of divine feminine, and healing my own femininity, which is something that needs, I mean, believe it or not, we all have our work to do, right? So, and I do too. I just do. There's always more that's asking to be healed and loved. And I do my best to honor that where I can and where I notice it. And this is a great opportunity to do that. But I've been avoiding the Weaver's Oracle now for a year, even though I knew immediately when I saw it that it was a deck I probably wanted and needed to work with. And just did not get it. So that one is coming. It is not yet here, but it's going to be on its way. Getting these past my partner, who lately was like, he never spends money on anything, nothing. And I'm just taking my time. I'm taking my time. And he's helped me realize, like, take your time, Nat, take your time. You don't need everything all at once. So I'm taking more time. There we go. I do have, there's two decks I'll just mention. They're on their way. One is on their way. The other one I haven't ordered yet. Again, I'm just going to take some time. But one of the, I don't know which videos will come out first, but one of the things that really made a huge impact on me about Kwanzaa and the Kwanzaa practice that I participated in was the emphasis on ancestors. And I'm very aware of the ways in which my own family still has a lot of ancestral healing that needs to take place, especially along the female lines on my mom's side. There's a few that need to be healed on my dad's side. And there's some serious honoring of those ancestors that I believe is going to be a part of that healing. And I need to look at how that wants to manifest itself. I think intuitively, that some of that is going to be able to take place through several of the decks I've already mentioned, right? I'm also wondering if some of it needs to take place through a deck that has more of a direct connection to some family heritage that is not acknowledged generally in our family. And that would be more, believe it or not, because I know white people love talking about their Nordic roots and ancestral roots. And I'm not talking about this spiritual community. I'm talking about the people I see every day that I wouldn't spend time with if I didn't have to, probably. It really, truly, so not anyone here, but folks that I deal with, in everyday life. They like to talk about their Irish ancestry or their German ancestry, their Nordic ancestry, their Scandinavian ancestry, and so on. We knew in my mom's side or my dad's side rather, that we're Irish, very, very Irish, and possibly British. Not that much, actually, it turns out. And on my mom's side, that it's predominantly British. What we didn't know or realize on both sides is that there is this huge streak of Viking coming down the pike, which I guess shouldn't be such a shock because, I mean, look at me, but you just don't know. And I mean, it's anyway, this stuff is such a crapshoot anyway, because it's not acknowledging a lot of the DNA that we have that goes back way, way, way further than this. And, to such a degree that actually ultimately we all come from Africa. And Africa is the mother continent of humanity. We've all come from there. So race and culture are ultimately a social construct, right? And a cultural construct. And scientifically, the result of genetics and epigenetics, and the way that epigenetics manifest in a group of individuals that share similar DNA because of environment, because of climate, etc., ad nauseum, right? And that last, say, 500 years, there's a lot of shit that went down. And I probably have a lot of ancestors who have some work they need to do. They have some honoring that I certainly want to offer. And there's a lot of healing there that probably needs to take place. So I'm looking at how I want to do that, and what kind of shape that wants to take. But the idea of honoring ancestors and honoring, for me, it also means honoring those who were wounded, or injured by my ancestors, because they too are my ancestors in some form. And I don't know quite how to articulate that. But the connection is there, and I feel it, and it's very real. So that was one of the biggest things I took from Kwanzaa. There were a lot of things that came from it, but that was definitely one. So I'm looking at how, what shape, what form, that wants to take in my practice. And I think that's it. Is that all of my different groups? Yeah, it looks like it. I think that's all. Yay, I got through it. I have my scribbles here in my little notebook and stuff, but you just never know, because sometimes your scribbles are not great, right? Oh, I do have one more. What am I saying? Because there's some here that I scribbled. And then there's one grouping that I did not get with my scribbles and thought, oh no, I've got to get that down. Okay, so the final group, right? I was going to not work with the New Earth Tarot this year so much, so strongly. And so I had wrapped it in its cloth and everything and taken it off of my, wrong direction, Nat. There we go, off of my altar space there, my tarot altar space. And put it in the sort of background section, and felt this kind of horrible, oh no, coming up out of my gut. And I thought, okay, what is that about? Well, then I pulled it out the other day and realized, no, I'm going to have to keep working with it. It's asking to be continued. There is a thread in here that is in here as well that's asking for this. Best way I can put it. So I then realized, because too, I had the instinct not to work with the Amenti Oracle with my spreads, right? With my weekly general readings anymore. And instead to find a way to use them just for me. And I then realized, oh, it's asking. These two would like to work together. So 2 of my favorite decks are asking for continued inclusion in my practice, which I'm loving. And simultaneously, they asked for the ability to be used with and alongside the Buddha Wisdom Divine Masculine, which all comes from the Dhammapada. Right? So that, because they have this similar kind of energy and feel. And with the Wisdom of the Buddha Mindfulness deck. And I asked if they wanted to work with the Tibetan decks, and it came back as a clunk. There was not a ding that came with that. These, I edged them because they're so beautiful. So each one has the meaning on one side and a beautiful image on the other, and then a commentary. So yeah, so I will be working with these 4 decks together this year for certain readings and rotating them, you know. But how I do that, what the plan is for doing that, I don't know yet. I really don't know yet. What I might start with the learning decks, where I'm doing a lot of learning work, is by drawing 1 a day. You know, 1 card a day can sometimes be very deep, because you can go, you know, when you're learning something, you can go in very deeply. Certainly, good Lord, with Tarot of the Spirit, that's definitely a good way to do it, because this one is very deep. And I remember even trying to do 1 card a day with this deck was like, whoa, that's a lot. So I think, yeah, I think maybe I will start there along with the coursework. And then maybe work with very specific, I'm inventing a lot of spreads and readings for myself for the work that I want to do, because it's specific and I know what it is. So I may share those at some point. I may share those. Maybe I need a blog. I need to deal with my website, that's for sure. But yeah, so there's a lot that's going to happen and a lot to come. But what I'd really like to do is dive a lot more deeply into the decks that I have, and work with them more mindfully and consciously. So yeah, there we go. As always, there's a lot. I'm probably biting off way more than I can chew, but I'd rather aim high and fall a little short, but still get a lot done, than not aim at all, because that sucks. Sometimes that sucks. And then you're like, what am I doing? What am I doing? Yeah, maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm the only one who had that problem. I don't know. Anyway, that's where I am with it. And I wanted to share. Okay, that's enough. Thank you. I'll talk to you guys soon. Lots of love to you all. Bye.